Of all the meals of the day, we often find that breakfast can be the most stressful when we're trying to get chores done outside and everyone needs to get ready, especially on those days when we have somewhere to be early in the morning. Breakfast just feels hard. But we have found that when we prepare ahead of time and have a few made ahead meals ready to go, it makes those breakfasts go so much smoother. So today I'm going to show you some of our favorite breakfast ideas that we make in advance to make those busy mornings go so much better. So our family just got back from a little week-long vacation that we took. So on our homestead, it can be hard for us to get away and to travel, especially when you have a family milk cow. But we like to take advantage of the little windows that we have. So Thimble, our milk cow, is due with a calf in April, which means 2 months before she's due, we dry her up, and so we take 2 months off from milking. So last week, we milked her for the last time, and then the next day, we jumped in the car and we headed out for a little family road trip. When we went to a little water park for a couple of days, and then we just did 4 or 5 days. We rented an Airbnb and just did a lot of hiking and exploring and hanging out and reading and resting, and it was just a really lovely time, really good family time. And sometimes it's just really nice to get away, even though home and our homestead is my absolute favorite place to be. Sometimes it's really nice to just get away for a few days. So that's where we were last week, but coming back, our fridge is basically empty and we need to fill it up and get some things ready. So today we are going to be prepping some of these items that we love to have on hand for nourishing breakfast, especially on those really busy days when I just need something quick that's ready to go. The first thing that we're going to be making here are these egg muffin cups. And the beauty of all the recipes that we're making today are that they are all really freezer friendly so that you can make them in batches, you can freeze them, and you can pull them out as needed. My eyes are watering. Another thing about these recipes is that they all, for the most part, are high in protein. So we have found that when we start the morning with a really good protein-rich breakfast, we just feel so much better, not just the rest of the morning, but the rest of the day. And I've also found that that just really helps keep our kids' bellies full so much better, and they seem to be more attentive and just do better. When we just have like oatmeal for breakfast, they really struggle and are usually asking for something else to eat by 10 o'clock. But if we start the day with a solid protein-rich breakfast, that definitely satisfies them much better until lunchtime. These egg cups are some of our favorites because I'm not sure what it is about serving things in a little cute muffin package that makes them so much more appealing to kids, but it does. You could take the exact same recipe, put it in a pan, and call it an egg casserole, but for some reason in our house, when it comes in muffin form, our kids just devour them so much more easily than if I were to make an egg casserole. So we love making them this way. It just goes over better. And if you're going to freeze them, I think the muffin cup idea works out way better, and you just have a really easy, ready to go, kind of handheld, bite-sized snack that anyone can eat. So making these is super simple. There are a few tricks that really can help make it better though. So I have found that 10 eggs is the perfect amount to fill 12 muffin cups. And so we always use 10 whole eggs. You can also, if you happen to have some egg whites on hand from some, if you used egg yolks in your coffee or made ice cream or something like that, you could do like 8 eggs and 2 egg whites. It's a good way to slip those in if you happen to just want to find a need for them. But usually we use 10 whole eggs in this recipe. Then you're going to add whatever mix-ins you like. So this morning we are sauteing up some garlic and onions that we're gonna add. We're gonna throw that in with some chopped up ham And then I'm gonna add some dried nettle that we have. There are so many combinations and variations on this that you could take. You could do peppers, you could do broccoli, you could add really any vegetable that you want to these muffin cups. The only thing I would say is that make sure you don't go, if you go really heavy on the vegetables, especially if they tend to be more moist vegetables, it could make for more of a soggy muffin cup that's not gonna have the right texture that you want. So I usually just try to do 1 or 2 vegetables and don't go crazy in the quantity that I'm using. I really like adding like the dried greens because those just blend in really nicely and don't alter the texture at all. But you can play around with it depending on what you like. But add some vegetables. If you'd like to add meat, we love to add ham or sausage or bacon to our muffin cups. We usually do about 1 to 2 cups of finely chopped or ground meat, and then stir that in with your eggs, and then you can add whatever herbs or seasonings that you want. I'm just doing salt and pepper here today, keeping it really simple. And then you're just gonna spoon those into your muffin cups. And if you'd like to add cheese on top, that's what we're doing. We just sprinkle some fresh grated cheese on top and they're ready to go. Just bake them at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 18 to 20 minutes. And once they are cooked all the way through, they're ready to eat. Or you can freeze them to pull out later. If you do decide to freeze them, really you can just pull them out from the freezer, heat them up in the oven or in the microwave until they're warmed through, and that's it. As you can see here, I am making these in our silicone muffin cups. So I'm going to ask you guys for your advice here. So I've been using silicone muffin cups for years, but recently I've been doing some research that silicone muffin cups might not be the best option for cooking muffins. Heating the silicone could potentially produce toxins. Have you guys heard about this? What do you do for cooking your muffins? We have an aluminum muffin tin, so I'm not crazy about the idea of cooking them in aluminum. What do you do for safe, toxic-free muffins? So give me your suggestions. I'd love to hear if you have a specific pan you use or how you like to cook them, because I am kind of back to the drawing board figuring out how we're gonna do this. I love the convenience of the silicone muffin cups, but now I'm hesitant with whether or not it's really a good idea to heat those up and serve them to my family. So let me know what you do in the comments below. So while our egg muffin cups are cooking, we're gonna go ahead and get started on these breakfast meatballs. And these are so yummy, you guys. These are one of my favorite breakfast special recipes. And it might sound a little funny. So what we do here is we mix ground pork with blueberries. I shred some carrot and add that in, and then some greens. So we're gonna use our dried nettle here again, but you could also use just some finely chopped kale to this recipe. And it might sound kind of funny, like an interesting combination of ingredients, but I promise the blueberry with the pork, it just goes really well and it's really delicious. I like to chop my blueberries in half for this when they're frozen. The blueberries are really easy to chop in half, and I think the whole blueberries just make it a little much in the meatball, but you can feel free to leave them whole if you don't want to go through the hassle of chopping them in half. But I'm chopping them in half here. And I should just note that I am going to put the links to all the recipes that I'm making below. So you can go ahead and find the full recipe and all the details in the links below. After you get all those ingredients in your bowl, you're just gonna add some spices. We are adding some sage, some thyme, some salt to these meatballs and mixing it all together. You could also add a little maple syrup for sweetness if you want. We usually leave it out, but it's also really delicious with it added in. These are a little messy to mix together with a spoon, so usually I resort to using my hands for this. And as you can see, I actually I sliced my finger about a week ago on a mason jar that slipped out of my hand when I was doing the dishes and had to get 3 stitches in my finger. So I'm a little bit out of commission right now, but I'm doing the best with my one hand and the rest of my left hand here to work these meatballs together. But I'm gonna call in some help for my kids who love to roll meatballs so they can help me.
See See how I do this?
After you get everything mixed together, you form your meatballs into balls. You're just gonna go ahead and bake those at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes, and they're ready to go.
Is it giving my hands a brain freeze?
Giving your hands a brain freeze? Do you have brains in your hands?
Yeah, my hand freeze.
A hand freeze. So we are kind of in this stage. It's March. Honestly, I haven't been to the grocery store since about January, so we are still just trying to work our way through all the food that we have stored. And so that's why this recipe is great too, because it uses what we have. We have lots of frozen blueberries in our freezer that we're still working through from the summer. We have tons of dried nettle that we harvested in the spring and dried. And then we still have lots of carrots that we have stored away. So I love these recipes that just combine these things that we already have on hand, and they just go so well together. I am using 2 pounds of pork for these meatballs, and this is gonna give you about 35 to 40 meatballs, depending on how big you make them. And again, once you cook these are great to freeze for later. That's what I love to do. And then you can just pull out a couple at a time, maybe add them to some muffins or some oatmeal or yogurt or whatever you're having, and it just kind of rounds it out and gives you a really nice protein option to go with something else and have an easy, ready-to-go breakfast. And if you don't want to use pork for these meatballs, you can also, I think, ground turkey or even ground chicken make the best substitute in this recipe for the pork. Here we go, Clara. All right. You want to get the oats, baking powder. What else do we need? Coconut oil, vanilla. Yeah, eggs would be great. Yeah. The yogurt's in the fridge. All right, guys, here we go. All right, so our egg muffin cups are out of the oven, our meatballs are in the oven, and now we are going to make up these blueberry oatmeal blender muffins. So if you saw the snack video that we did a few videos ago, we made our banana oat blender muffins, and those are just hugely popular in our house. Those are probably the most requested muffin recipe that our kids ask for. So I have been experimenting with trying to make a blueberry blender oat muffin recipe, and the reason being is because, like I said before, we really try to focus on eating the foods that we are able to grow or purchase here locally. And so we have a ton of blueberries in our freezer, but we rarely have bananas on hand. I will pick up bananas when we go to the store, but I only go to the store every couple of months. And so bananas are just not something that we always or very often have readily available. And so I was looking to adapt that banana oat blender muffin recipe to just a blueberry blender oat muffin recipe, because those are just ingredients that we always have on hand, and so it would be something that I could make all the time instead of just every once in a while. So after some experimentation, I'm super happy with how this recipe is turning out, and it's really similar to the other recipe. It still uses really simple, nourishing ingredients, your oats, yogurt, coconut oil, and then your baking powder, vanilla, normal baking things, a little bit of maple syrup we throw in, and you just throw that all in a blender, blend it up, and that's gonna be your batter. And then you pour that batter into your muffin cups and then gently add in the blueberries. Again, I will post the exact recipe in the link below so that you can see the whole thing. But these come together really easily, and I think our kids like them almost as much as the banana blender oat muffins. So I'm super happy with how they turned out. I know I've said before that our typical breakfast in our house tends to be scrambled eggs or some form of eggs, hard-boiled or over easy or whatever everyone's feeling that day. But it's just so nice to have some of these other things ready to go. If you have scrambled eggs every day, people just get sick of it after a few days. And so this is just such a nice way to throw in some of these other things without making it feel like the morning needs to feel hectic or extra busy. It actually makes the morning feel even more smooth and easy. And then the last thing we're going to be making here are these sausage patties. And so we have been making this recipe for years. We make a really basic sausage patty. It just uses a handful of basic ingredients. I'm going to chop up some garlic here, mix that in with our ground pork. When I'm making these sausage patties, I like to make them in bulk so that I have a bunch of them and then we freeze them to have on hand. So I am using 3 pounds of pork here. We're gonna add in some sage, some maple syrup, a little bit of mustard and salt, and mix that all together with our garlic, and it makes just a really nice, flavorful, basic maple sage sausage patty. You can get a lot fancier and elaborate with things you throw in there, or sometimes I like to saute up onion and add that in, but today I'm just gonna keep it really basic. After you get all those ingredients together, mix it up again with all of this ground pork. I find the easiest way to do this is with your hands. So get in there, mix it all together till all those spices are mixed around really well, and then form your sausage into patties. It is really hard to find high quality sausages out there from what I have found. If you look at the packages of the ingredients of most pre-made sausage mixes or brats or patties or whatever, it's just really hard to find clean ingredients. They love to throw corn syrup solids and extra, especially sugars and corn syrup, into most of those sausage mixes. And so I have just found years ago that it's just way easier to get ground pork and then to make my own sausage. Because even if you can find a good, clean sausage, that's awesome. It's likely going to cost more. And so I just like to buy plain ground pork from a local farmer, or we like to barter it here with friends and neighbors, and then make my own sausage patties. So the 3 pounds of pork that we have is gonna make about 20 to 25 sausage patties depending on how big you make them. And then you're gonna go ahead and just fry them up in a frying pan. Usually 8 to 10 sausage patties fits in our large 12-inch cast iron pan at a time. So I do this in a couple rounds, but go ahead and just fry those up. Because I make them pretty small on the thin side, it really only takes a couple minutes on each side. They're really quick to make. And then I go ahead and lay them on a baking sheet and then just freeze them in a single layer to store for later. So we are able to get all of those things whipped up in just a few hours, and it feels so good to have a few just easy, ready to go options on hand. So we're gonna go ahead, take these meatballs out of the freezer, store them in plastic bags, and we are stocked up for at least the next couple weeks with some ready to go easy breakfasts.